Welcome to the show, How to Buy a Homies. I understand that getting a home loan can be one of the most overwhelming, confusing, and downright just frustrating things when you're trying to figure out, am I even in a position to buy a home? You got questions about interest rates, choosing a lender, looking at online lenders. How do you know when you're actually even ready to talk to a mortgage person, and so much more? Well, let's get those questions answered for you. After 6 years of doing this podcast, we've obviously talked about getting your home mortgage to buy your first home multiple different times. This is episode 242 from a few years back, where I took 10 listener questions about how to get a loan to buy your first home, and I answered them all. We've done dozens and dozens of episodes on the entire home loan process. Obviously, we've been doing this for 6 years, and this is a big question that you want answered. So check the show notes for links on every topic you could ever imagine about getting a loan to buy your first home. Here we go.
How to Buy a Home educates, protects, and connects first-time homebuyers to qualified vetted realtors in their area. Whether you're looking for DIY information or step-by-step guidance, How to Buy a Home is the #1 resource for first-time homebuyers.
This is one of the biggest topics that I get when people are asking questions about buying their first home, the home loan and the whole lending process. So that's what we're going to focus on today, part 2 of listener questions. If you missed part 1, here's the dealio on how these question and answers work. I'm going to tell you the listener question that was sent in to me at howtobuyahome.com, and then I'm going to give you the short, summarized answer. Now, bear in mind, a lot of times each one of these questions create a topic that could be an entire podcast of their own, and many times they actually are individual podcasts if you go back and look at the podcast library, the back catalog we've had since 2019. So today, these answers are going to be short and sweet, just straight up truth bombs, baby, dropping knowledge nuggets from me, because I am just, well, a pissed off man with a microphone. I've been seeing too many first-time buyers get taken advantage of, so let's answer your questions. And yeah, in the world of mortgages, that's where I see a lot of people trying to take advantage of you. There are people out there with no business trying to sell you a loan, let alone advise you on what your best fiscal move is for the next 30 years of your life. And many of these wannabe sales sleazeballs, they actually bailed from the loan industry. Reports are saying that in 2024, almost half of the people that do loans for a living tried it out, and then they're quitting this year. My job, helping you get trusted information, that's become an even more important mission for me, because it's painfully apparent that half of the loan industry is clueless. So clueless, they quit. So let's be sure that you get the right advice and don't get burned. Here's the 10 questions we're going to cover today. First of all, one quick disclaimer before I give you the top 10 list. I'm not a lender. This advice, it just comes from me. It's just advice. I'm just an 18-year vet in the real estate industry. I am licensed on the real estate side, but because I've been helping first-time homebuyers in Southern California, one of the most expensive areas in the country, even though I'm not a lender, in order to properly serve the hundreds of first-time buyers that I have here in Southern California, it's so expensive, you bet I had to learn all the ins and outs of lending, because it's dang near impossible to get yourself a house. I had to become a math and lending savant in order to make these dreams even feasible for people trying to buy their first starter condo at $500,000, $600,000, $700,000. Here's the listener questions I'm going to answer. What can I do to get the best mortgage rate? What should I do first? Get a real estate agent or pick a lender? How do you pick a lender? Should I use an online lender to get a better rate? Is it better to use my bank or a mortgage broker? How much salary do I need to make before I even think about talking to someone about buying a home? When will I know I'm ready to talk to a mortgage person? How can anybody buy with these high mortgage interest rates? How do I find out what I can buy when I'm doing this on my own? And then number 10, what can I do to avoid PMI so I can get a cheaper payment? All right, let's dive right into it. Number 1, what can I do to get the best mortgage rate? Damn. All right, here we go, right from the top. That's the big question on everyone's mind. I know it, so let's get into it. I addressed this most recently in episode 237, and for many of you, my answer is going to shock you because it's the opposite of everything that the internet says. I am fully aware of this. Homies, as a guy with no agenda, zero, I'm not selling you a loan, nor will I ever. I am just an educator. Keep in mind that I'm going to tell you my advice, which is going to absolutely be different than almost everything else you're going to find online. My advice, don't shop the number, don't shop rates. Now hang on, that's not the end of it, there's more. The best way for you to get the best rate involves a lot more than the rate. First, you want to get a unicorn realtor who has a trusted, non-big business relationship with a few different lenders, and those lenders are going to treat you like a person, not a number. That's the shopping that you want to do. Narrow it down the funnel with a unicorn realtor first, and then you shop those lenders and take a look at their rates. And then in the end, the numbers that you see in your total home purchase, including your loan, it's going to be far better for you and your bottom line. That unicorn team, a full support team, they're going to find, strategize, and create with you all your personal options that are going to save you so much more than just an interest rate quote. Don't shop numbers, shop service. Now, I know you're thinking, it's a great way for me to get ripped off, Sidoni. Well, get this. All the good lenders, they know that they are being shopped for their interest rate. The good ones, the best ones, the ones that are going to offer you wire-to-wire, non-bait and switch service with no surprises at the end when it's too late, they realize they have to offer competitive rates because if they didn't, they wouldn't survive. Plus, and this is a big, fatty plus, they're going to offer you competitive rates plus the service that you deserve, guidance to help you discover all of your options. So not only will you get a great interest rate, but you could save tens of thousands of dollars at the purchase and possibly hundreds of thousands of dollars over the life of the loan because they took the time to figure out the right plan for you and they set it up from the beginning. Not just giving you a numbers answer and saying, oh, okay, based on what you gave me today and not asking you any questions, I'm the customer service department for bigloan.com and you are approved for ding, and they give you a number and you just work with that. That bums me out so badly. There is so much more that you can do when you work with a team that's looking at your overall plan. Your loan rate, it's part of this partnership, and that's a partnership with your trusted lending team to get the overall best financial plan, including the best interest rate you can get for this humongous purchase. And if you want to hear some real life stories on this instead of your cringy Uncle Dude just rambling here, dig into the interview episodes. Almost every single one of them has at least some miraculous lender story that ends up being part of that renter turned homeowner story. Question number 2, which should I do first? Get a real estate agent or pick my lender? Okay, questions 1 and 2. These are some of the biggest myths that I'm trying to burst with this podcast. Trying to create a revolution that ends this myth. The myth that your very first step is to get a loan pre-approval before you even think of bothering a realtor. This is wrong. No, wrong as backwards. This procedure is not the correct order that's going to maximize your buying potential. It was totally invented by the lending company in an attempt to capture your business. That's the words they use. This is not the way you want to do it. In just a minute, I'm going to give you the best money-saving procedure step by step so you won't get ripped off. Here's the inside information of what's going on and why you're seeing it everywhere. If you're an OG homie, you may have heard some of these things before. Here's some of the history. Realtors and lenders are independent businesses, and they are both trying to get you to work with them so they get paid. And they both go out and market independently. Realtors say, hey, come to me first. I'm the realtor and I can get you some great lenders. And the lenders say, oh, no, come to me first and I can get you to a great realtor. First, let me tell you, legally, no realtor to lender or lender to realtor gets any sort of kickback from serving you up as a client from one to the other. That's illegal, so don't worry about that. The reason why this myth, this incorrect information is so omnipresent online when you Google, what's the first step to do to buy a home? Well, that's because realtors are stupid and the lenders won. In the battle of internet supremacy, the lenders have kicked the realtors' ass. I mean, so did Zillow, so did realtor.com, and so did homes.com. You see, the realtors sat around holding their little MLS books, thinking that everyone was going to come to them forever, not realizing that the internet was going to be where people started. And the lenders and those other Zillow and realtor.com and home sites, what they did was they put billions. Yes, that was billions with a B. Billions into these user-friendly sites. And they figured out the best thing to do to capture you was to tell you immediately, hey, don't bug the realtor. Why would you call the realtor? That's so rude. Don't do that. You have no idea how much home you can buy. You have to get a home loan pre-approval first. You have to. If you don't show up with that, the realtor's going to think that you have no idea what you're doing. And you don't want the realtor to think that you're not serious and you're wasting their time. Come to us first. Just put your information right here in this really fancy looking website. All right, homies, I'm a little riled up today, a lot of caffeine, but this is wrong on so many levels. And I'm seriously fighting like hell to change the industry with a revolution of straight facts to dispute this lazy, greedy, money-making tactic. And I want to replace it with my own crazy industry disrupting idea of, educating the buyer first and then showing them the best way to plan. Planning being the important part of that. And the best way to plan is to gather your full unicorn support team and have them all work together. All of them who know each other work together. They're going to work your best timelines. They'll take the time if you need it. They'll make sure that you're using the correct strategies and the right options. These big online lenders, they're looking at your numbers and they just want to give you a number to say, yep, there it is, $350. Go out and buy a house. Call me when you need a pre-approval letter. That is the definition of the least that you can do. If this question is your big question, who first, realtor or lender? Go to episode 203. Realtor first. Trusted, verified, interviewed, quality, good, unicorn realtor first. Then, second, that unicorn realtor gives you a few options for you to decide and work with the best lender. For more in-depth, dirty details, like I said, episode 203. Question number 3, how do I pick a lender? If you've heard nothing but horror stories from first-time homebuyers, then let me get on the solution side of the problem for you. Start with the realtor first and then get a few good quality people who will do the home loan for you, directly related and referred by the unicorn realtor that you've interviewed and you trust, and you realize you're going to create a team full of advocacy, willing to work with you on the plan, not just trying to get one sale. Okay, moving on. Next question, number 4. Should I use an online lender to get a better rate? No. Sorry. Please, no. One of the biggest mistakes in human history, besides the abomination that is Greece 2, is that first-time homebuyers shop for mortgage loan rates instead of shopping for the right lender that can and do offer comparable rates, along with wildly better service, planning tips, maybe even a year or 2 years out before you're ready to buy. And that real person lender, someone who's not working in one of the online lender chop shops, they're going to ultimately save you multiple tens of thousands of dollars by helping you qualify for the best loan product for you. Short answer, your online lenders don't put in all the work to find out what the actual best product is for you. So don't be sucked into their bait and switch of a low interest rate when you find one online. That is truly a sales technique taught to online lenders, and it's used to capture you. If you want to hear deeper into this, remember, this is just summaries today. You can go all the way back into the library. I started talking about this at episode 11, and there's also episode 16, 65, 66, 180, 192, and 196. Yeah, because the topic of choosing a lender versus online lenders, edit. Yeah, that's because this topic of choosing a lender and what about online lenders is so important that I've dedicated all those episodes, several full episodes of the podcast over the past 5 years. Question number 5, is it better to use a bank or a mortgage broker? This is a question that is not quite so black and white. I do know a few unicorns that their main lenders that they like to recommend to people, they actually do work for the banks. Some of the big 4 banks, Citibank, Chase, Wells Fargo, and BofA. But in general, I recommend a mortgage broker much, much more than a bank or a credit union. Actually, way more than a credit union or a small bank. And most of the time, more than one of those big 4 banks, unless there's some individual lender there who's just kicking butt. Now, I explain all the details of why I recommend a mortgage broker over a bank in episode 16, but here's the headline. Okay, you go to a bank, you ask them for a loan, and they offer you usually about 4 or 5 products. Most of those products, by the way, the bank is personally attached to. Conflict of interest much? Whereas a mortgage broker does just what the name says. They broker your loan. They shop the loan. So you might end up with 20, 25, 30 products. And a lot of times those will include the exact same product that big bank is offering you. Sometimes you go to a mortgage broker and the mortgage broker shows you 25 loans and the best loan is the Wells Fargo. But if you just went to the Wells Fargo, you wouldn't have even seen all those other 25 options, and maybe one of them would have been better for you. So the mortgage broker can show you everything the big bank has, plus a bunch of other loan products. And the deal is, most of the time, the other non-big bank loan products, they're more, well, let's just say suited for first-time home buyers. They're less stringent and less conservative. And first-time home buyers, let's face it, we're not all coming in with big fat dollars and 30% down. That's big bank territory. And finally, the credit unions. I love credit unions. Love credit unions. I love them for savings accounts, early credit cards, for car loans, and small personal loans. But when it comes to home loans, they stink. I really wish that this just wasn't me saying this with, just like my emotion and some crazy opinion that I have. But I've actually seen this and have the data in real life. For instance, love helping my people who work at Disneyland. I've helped over 250 cast members. It's a thing. They all love their credit union, but not one of them, once we did the comparison, ever used the credit union because they got so much better service from a mortgage broker. And the Disney Credit Union is a great credit union. For a while, I even partnered with them directly, telling them about the podcast. We were trying to work together, but even then, every time a mortgage broker had a way better deal for the buyer, even if the buyer was a little goofy. Actually, the goofy buyer, I think they have to be at least 6 feet tall to fit in the costume. Bam! First dad joke of the episode, and it serendipitously landed right here, unplanned, at the halfway point of our 10 questions. Let's go on to question number 6. How much salary do I need to make before I start thinking about buying a home? Oh, homies, you're going to hate this answer. It depends. It always depends. Homies, no two buyers are the same. And the answer is so wildly different for everyone that people I see online on social media saying, okay, gang, if you make $100,000, you can't afford the average home in America. There is way too much information needed to know about the buyer. You each have hundreds of personal variables. Then those personal variables, that's what's going to answer the question, how much money do you need to make? You can't answer it in a general statement. You can't say, $100,000, you can only buy a $300,000 house. Or for $150,000, if that's what you make, cool, you can buy a $400,000 house. There's no way. There's too much information. Now, I broke it down for you long form in episodes 162 and 174. And if you listen to those, just understand that the numbers back then, the actual dollar figures, they're outdated. Why? Well, because one of the main variables, the reason why you can't make a generalization about how much money you need to make is because every buyer's minimum that they need to make varies daily based on this one giant factor. Got to guess what it is? The current interest rates. And those change daily. So nobody can say $100,000 buys you X. The deal is there's 1,000 different things that will affect what salary you need to buy what type of home. Everybody has different variables and facts about their own financial position. Therefore, there is no one answer to, if I make this much salary, how much can I afford? Even if you have the exact interest rate. Okay, question 7. When will I know I'm ready to talk to a mortgage person? So you listen to the show? Great, you're ready. That's it. If you have this podcast in your ear holes, you probably should be talking to a mortgage person. The right mortgage person, someone who wants to talk to you and help you weigh out with your plan. What? What's that you say? You think it's too early? You don't want to bother people? That's very considerate of you. Fortunately, unicorns would love to help you start a plan, even if you're a year out. Question number 8. This question was formatted like this, and I'm not kidding. Dude, nobody can buy with these high mortgage rates. What do I do? Okay, answer, not true. I want you to understand, I'm not an illogical blowhard ignoring the fact that on paper, when you look at trying to buy a home right now, it sucks. It's expensive. It's more expensive than it's ever been. But here's a fun fact about buying a home. Homes are always selling to buyers of all economic backgrounds. If you think that high interest rates have kept the quote unquote average normal person from buying a home, well, then we would be in a gigantic crash. but we're not. If the interest rates, the high prices, or the inventory got so bad that the only people who could afford to buy a home were people with perfect credit and 20% down, not only would the housing market crash, the entire economy would collapse. There's data to back this up for the people who've been buying over the last 8-9 months since interest rates went to 8%. There's always an obstacle to buy your first home. This one just seems crazy because you've only been looking at buying a home for the past 3, 4, 5 years. If you had the history of the last 20 years, you'd realize there is never a perfect time to buy a home, and the haters always have something to hate about. If the inventory is too high, then they say,
oh, well, the prices are too high. And so now, people are being unrealistic. So I can't find a good house to write an offer on.
If the inventory is too low,
now I'm always being beaten out by cash buyers.
And if the rates are too high, like this question, then they'll say that,
well, now they can't afford a home.
And if the rates are too low, bidding wars are happening because everyone's trying to buy with these low rates. Looking at the data of the people who bought homes, even as rates have gone up, I can definitively tell you if there was any factor, including high interest rate, that detained the everyman, every person from buying their first starter home, well, then we would see data that shows plummeting housing, and we would be in a crisis, and you would have heard about it on the news. Here's the stats and those facts and data. There are about 5 to 6 million homes sold in a good year. In a bad year, it's about 4 million. In the last 10 years, the average percent of the first-time home buyers was 33% of the buyers. Now, remember how I told you that they're not people with big, huge down payments? Over that last decade, the average down payment has been between 7 and 8%. So that means that this year, if the high interest rates were such a crazy factor that it was locking out the everyman trying to buy a home, that means we'd be looking at an approximate total homes sold of like 2 or 3 million, but we're not. Even though interest rates have been sucky since October of 2023, hitting the highest level that we've seen since the 1990s, we are still on pace to sell 4.1 or 4.2 million homes. Yes, homies, this is real talk time. The high interest rates do not completely deter people from buying. It just makes it more difficult to figure out. And not everyone out there understands the complexities and the details. Yeah, it's harder to figure out your budget. But when, not if, homies, when you do figure out your budget, you're going to have some other pretty important elements in the home buying process that you're going to be looking at and realize these might be a great advantage to me, even though the interest rates are high. Don't let the fear of high rates mean that you miss out on the great benefits and advantages. Every single housing market has disadvantages and advantages for first-time home buyers. Right now, the disadvantage is high interest rates. What no one's talking about is the advantages. If you want information on how to use high interest rates to your advantage or to your advantage, listen to episode 36 and 37. Question number 9. I don't want to talk to a lender because I don't want to get my credit pulled. Getting a credit inquiry lowers your credit score. You told me to watch my credit score, so I'm going to do most of the work on my own and not do that hard credit pull. So if I'm doing that on my own, how do I find out what I can buy? All right, homies, this is a big one. So please hear me now. This is a myth. This is wrong. This is bad advice. This will cost you more money. Should I go on? You people out there who are avoiding a hard credit pull, I have to tell you something. You're smart. You are seriously, you're geniuses. And I'm not being facetious. I know that sounds like it, but I'm not. I wish that when I was younger, I had a brain like you. I mean that sincerely. I mean, I've been doing this for 18 years, and for the past 5 years doing it with the podcast, helping tens of thousands of first-time home buyers. I've got the data right in front of me. The people that freak out about a hard credit pull are usually the most educated, the smartest, and the most prepared buyers that I know. That is a fact. That is a fact. In the 90 percentile of people who freak out, they're the people that are smart, educated, prepared, and don't need to be freaking out this. So knowing that fact, we've seen tens of thousands of hard credit pulls, and I have the results for you. In all those years, I have seen people lose a home by waiting to get their credit pulled because they were afraid of a hard inquiry or a hard pull. But I have also seen more people get a home and get better options because they got a hard credit pull early and didn't freak out about that hitting their credit score. And over 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, they ended up getting a better option for themselves because they had the full real data in their face from the very beginning. And on the same token, I have never seen somebody lose a home because they got a credit score 6 months, 9 months early, and oh, my credit score's down 3 points. Let me explain how this whole thing works for you. I told you about the 20-point tiers that rank your credit score for mortgages. Told you about that in part 1 of this series. That's where I told you that the absolute top score is 760. And what's cool about listening to this podcast is since I recorded that last one, I found out that just this year, just in the past few weeks, it's changed. Now the absolute top score is 780. Okay, so there's a change. Listen to the podcast so you can keep up with the news. So the top score is 780. Anything above that is not going to get you better fees or better rates on your mortgage. So if you're sitting there at 805, you're probably the person who freaks out about a hard pull on your credit. But a hard pull on your credit score, Mr. 805, it affects you the same way it affects everybody else. It's like 2, 3, or 4 points. So I'm going to say this again. This is a myth. Look, eventually you're going to have to get your credit pulled at one point when you buy a home. Okay, that's just a little bit of the simple math so you understand how insignificant those hard credit pulls are. I understand it's out there, but it's a myth. The other thing you have to know is that at one point when you buy a home, you're going to have to get your credit pulled at some time. So don't think that just because you have great credit, you're going to be able to buy without ever getting a hard inquiry on your credit score. It's going to happen. And if you truly want to plan the best way an intelligent, organized, and practical person like yourself should do the process, go ahead and get that hard credit pull 12 months before you think you're going to buy. Take that small 2, 3, 4 point hit then. Now you've got months and months and months to make it up. Why am I so adamant about this? Because depending on which report you look at, credit scores are wrong. I've seen as low as 35 and as high as 75% of all credit scores have mistakes on them. So, best case scenario, 35%. You have a 1 in 3 chance of your credit score having wrong information. So if you don't get the full complete data from a hard credit pull, and it's not Credit Karma, and it's not even whatever the last time you did it, you need to have it with a mortgage professional. You're looking at a 1 in 3 chance that you find something that you need to erase on your credit score. But that takes time. Time is the biggest factor. That's why I want you to start planning as early as possible. Like everything when it comes to buying a home, the more time you spend with a professional support team, the better options that you have. And in this case, if you need the time to fix something, the more time you have, then the easier it will be for you to make up those 2, 3, or 4 points. Not to mention the fact that what if you are one of those 35% and you're sitting there at a, 785 credit score, but you're afraid of the hard credit pull because you don't want to go below that 780. Well, what if you get a hard credit pull and then you find out that there's something on that's a mistake and then you get that mistake taken off? You need about 3 months for that to affect your score. So that's why I say do it a long time ago. Now you'll not only make those 2 or 3, 4 points up over the time, you'll also get the big boost when that mistake is off of your credit report. Now, I'm telling you this not as a theory or a philosopher or a conceptualization. This is a fact because I've seen it with thousands and thousands of first-time homebuyer accounts that I've been a part of or that the unicorns have been a part of. I'm mad at the system for corrupting the search engines and I'm mad at the industry for giving crappy information and not giving you the best pieces of the puzzle so that you can thrive. If you want more on this, it's episode 72 and 199. The odds tell me that you're probably a smart person who really just digs deep into everything. It just sucks you've been told the wrong thing. Okay, only one more left on today's list of 10 questions, so stick around because as I was preparing for this episode, I got a new question, so that means there's going to be a bonus after number 10. Question number 10, what can I do to avoid PMI, private mortgage insurance, so that I can get a cheaper payment? Well, that private mortgage insurance, PMI, it exists for loans that have less than 20% for your down payment. Means that you have to pay that insurance premium. It's an extra monthly fee, small fee that you pay to insure your loan. And there are a lot of gurus out there that tell you that if you pay PMI when you're buying a home, you're an idiot and you're throwing money away. Respectfully, I would like to refer the people who say that to something I call math. Yes, good old-fashioned math. I go into detail of the voodoo magic that I call math in episodes 54, in episodes 69 and 106. Those are my 2 episodes disputing our good friend Dave Ramsey. I also talk about it in 131. And then in episode 198, I actually have a big episode called PMI is a Privilege. And then in episode 216, because people were still asking me about it, I did a full episode called, Hey, PMI is still a privilege and still not the devil. So it's all out there. So I'm going to give you a real quick summary. And if you need more, go listen to those episodes. The simple equation is like this. Say you got a $400,000 home and you want to buy it, and you've only got 10% or $40,000 saved. All right. If you bought it with that 10%, you'd pay PMI, but you're not going to do that because you would only idiots use PMI. So you decided to keep saving till you got 20% down because you don't want to be an idiot. All right. Well, that means you got to save $40,000. And right now you're paying $2,500 a month on rent. And on a good month, you can pay your rent plus your bills and save like $1,000 if you do nothing. So if you wait to save that $40,000 because you want to avoid that nasty PMI and not be an idiot, $1,000 a month, scrimping and saving, that's 40 months to buy the home. The other side of the equation is that you could have bought it with 10% down and your PMI would be anywhere between $75 and $175 per month. The higher your credit score, the lower that fee is. Let's just call it $150. So to save $150 a month, you're going to be saving for 40 months to save up the $40,000 to get 20% down. But if we multiply the $150 a month for 40 months, you're only saving $6,000 in those PMI fees that you would have paid. But in the meantime, during those 40 months, you paid $2,500 in rent times 40 months. That's $100,000 of rent that you paid instead of owning the home 40 months ago. So you paid $100,000 to the landlord instead of paying it to yourself, gaining the appreciation, getting free equity. So once again, I refer you to my friend, math. That's the basics. If you really want more details on my math, like I said, episode 54, 69, 106, and 131, and then 198 and 216. PMI is still a privilege and not the devil. All right, now this is the bonus question because I got this question this morning and it was like the 3,468th time someone's asked me this question. I heard you can use your 401k to buy a home, but is it smart? Okay, homies, let's go back to that trust bond that we have from my microphone to your ear holes. For a lot of you out there, yes, it's really smart. And I know that sounds crazy to take from your retirement to buy something, but look, the boomers tell you that doing this is financially dumb. Yeah, take a good look, boomer, at the graph of rent prices. Let's look at the graph of the rent prices when you saved and bought a home versus people trying to save today and buy a home with these rent rates. Borrowing against your 401k, it's not irresponsible in this current climate. This is not sacrificing your future for something that you can't afford today, an irresponsible decision. This is a new world, and for many people buying a home, you need to do it as a rent replacement strategy because this economy is not working. And maybe the only way that you're going to be able to diversify your retirement portfolio over the next 50 years is by doing a 401k, but also by having the longer term investment of that home. See, for many people in 30 or 40 years in their home or the future homes that they buy when they trade up with the profit from the first home, for many, many people, especially today, the big equity you're going to have in 30 or 40 years, that's going to be like a big part of your retirement. Have you guys ever heard of downsizing? That's what the boomers do. They bought their first home for $50 and a jar of peanut butter. And then they lived in it for 50 years, and you heard they just sold it for $1.8 million. And now they're going to buy a condo in Myrtle Beach, all cash, for $300,000. So now that means they've got $1.5 million they can put in their retirement fund. So now they're sitting there with their 401k plus the $1.5 million they got for the equity when they sold their home, and they can take round the world cruises like big ballers. Well, boomers, the people today cannot buy their home for $50 and a jar of Skippy. So today, let's throw some concepts at you. How about a non-taxable, no penalty, one-time privilege that you get with most 401ks when you're buying your first primary residence, borrowing up to $50,000 to help you with your down payment and closing costs? And just tell the boomer, all you're doing is diversifying your future retirement portfolio by beefing up the amount of equity that you're going to gain by getting into a home as early as possible. And the math will actually be better for you and your retirement in the long run. There you go, how to buy a homies. I hope that brought some clarity to the home loan process for buying your first home. And if you're still looking for more information, The fact that we're replaying episodes that we did a couple years ago tells you that absolutely everything a first-time homebuyer needs is in our podcast library. The catalog of episodes. Scroll through. Find titles for things that you're curious about. Check the episode guide at howtobuyahome.com. It'll list all the podcasts and break them down into sections for different topics that you want to study. And of course, anytime you're at howtobuyahome.com, you can click the Ask David button and ask me a question directly. And then when you're ready, you can ask to see if we've got a local unicorn team in your specific area. Local knowledge is huge, not to mention the fact that they are the people who work with compassion, empathy, and caring to set you up to build a plan, not just to try to turn and burn you and get you to buy a house right away. So congrats to you for continuing your education. And hey, why don't you get started on your plan today? You can do this.
Looking for more DIY education or your own personal step-by-step guidance through the home buying journey? Since 2019, How to Buy a Home has been the #1 resource for first-time home buyers. So visit howtobuyahome.com to get started.